It started with a scholarship letter, a thick cream envelope, gilded with the embossed seal of Grace Foundation, slipped from a stack of papers on my desk and fell to the floor. Ironic, really. The letter was congratulating a girl in Detroit on her full tuition ride to Princeton, and yet it felt like I had just received the reminder. This is why I built it. Not for the galas or the press write-ups. Not for the bronze bust they tried to install in the lobby. For her. For every girl like her. My name is Elena Mitchell, and 25 years ago, I liquidated my share of my late husband's tech empire. $38.2 million after taxes and legal gymnastics, and built the Grace Foundation from the ground up. Education is the only true equalizer, and I made it my life's work to ensure no bright mind was dimmed by circumstance. We fund over 700 scholarships annually. We've built schools in Appalachia, libraries in South Central LA, teacher training programs in Ghana and the Philippines. Our annual operating budget has grown from $200,000 in our first year to just under $18 million. The office we occupy now is 3 floors of light and mission and unapologetic ambition in Midtown Manhattan. I've personally written checks totaling over $15 million in the last decade alone. I am proud. I am exhausted. And, I will admit this only here, only once, I have been terribly, recklessly naive. Nicole, my younger sister by 5 years, came on board 8 years ago when I was stretched too thin. I just recovered from surgery, and the foundation was entering its first multi-country partnership with UNESCO. She had a knack for people, a social grace I lacked. She charmed easily, smiled quickly, and handled high-net-worth donors like she was born among them. She wasn't, of course. Neither of us were. We came from Cleveland. Our mother cleaned offices at night and boiled potatoes 3 ways on Sundays. Our father left when I was 9. I was the sister who turned my savings into a full ride at NYU, who waited tables through grad school and married a man who turned his algorithms into wealth before collapsing from a heart attack at 42. Nicole was always floating. A decade in retail, a short-lived candle company, then a real estate license she let expire after one sale. But I wanted to believe in her. So I gave her the community liaison title, a comfortable 6-figure salary, $162,000 to be exact, an office with frosted glass, and a vague portfolio she could mold. She planned events, massaged donor egos, helped with press outreach. Nothing sensitive. No finances, no policy work, nothing that could sink us. So I thought. To the outside world, we were sisters building an empire of goodwill. To my board, she was a warm body with a familiar last name. To me, she was someone I was helping. There were hints, little things. A Louis Vuitton tote that seemed too new. A black Amex flashing at Cipriani over lunch with potential donors. I remember once asking gently, "Nicole, are you budgeting well with the salary?" And she laughed, brushed me off with a sip of rosé and a breezy, "Elena, you worry too much." Maybe I did. I wanted to. It was easier to believe she'd gotten her act together, that she'd grown into the kind of woman who didn't just play at wealth, but managed it. I realize now, in hindsight, that denial is not a lapse of intelligence. It's a luxury emotion. I could afford to look away, but the moment that truly stung, the one that lodged in the marrow, was at the board's winter brunch, a small, exclusive gathering of donors and directors, my legacy, my life's work, distilled into one warm December morning at the Waldorf. Nicole swept in late, kissed cheeks, hugged Samantha Page with performative delight, and clinked her glass. Samantha, a longtime donor who once told me she wanted to will her Hamptons property to the foundation, turned to me and said, I love how Nicole has become the face of grace. You must be so proud. I smiled. A public smile, all teeth and training. But something hollow cracked inside me. The face of grace? I watched as Nicole laughed, commanding the table, casually dropping that she'd be speaking on behalf of Grace at the Aspen Philanthropy Summit. I hadn't been invited. In fact, I hadn't even known she was going. It wasn't just exclusion. It was quiet erasure. A redirection of the spotlight I'd earned onto someone who never had to stand in its heat. Later, when I confronted her privately, she brushed it off. Elena, come on, you hate those events. I'm just keeping the brand fresh. Young energy, right? I said nothing. But that night, I opened my laptop and pulled up our expense reports for the first time in 6 months. I wasn't looking for betrayal. I just needed reassurance. What I found was a single Uber receipt. $274 from Soho to East Hampton, marked as student transport. One receipt. Enough to light the match. The Uber charge was the first breadcrumb, and I could have convinced myself it was just a clerical error. God knows we've had those. But denial, once fractured, begins to bleed. I couldn't stop looking after that. I told myself I was just doing due diligence, that I was being responsible, that if I found nothing, I'd feel better and we'd go on. But it didn't go that way. The next morning, I arrived at the office before the interns. I made myself a cup of burnt coffee in the break room, shut my office door, and started digging. I pulled every expense report, every discretionary account, every credit card statement tied to community engagement. Nicole's name was on everything. $3,200 at Cartier, tagged as donor gifts. $9,600 for a wellness retreat in Sedona. 3 nights at a spa resort I knew all too well from town and country. A monthly car service, $1,850. Private jet charters filed under international outreach. A $14,000 invoice from a luxury interior design firm, office upgrades. I'd never seen a new chair. I spent 10 hours that day with receipts. 10 hours in the company of betrayal, watching it take shape with every PDF I opened. My hands trembled by hour 6. I didn't eat. I just stared, cataloged, and highlighted with a mechanical calm I didn't feel. The sum total of the questionable transactions? $327,411.68. Just over $250,000 spent in 18 months. And that was only what I could find easily. That night, I called Marcus Reed. He'd done audit consulting for us 2 years ago, a sharp, discreet man with a memory like a vault and a face made for nodding silently. Marcus, I said, keeping my voice even, I need help with something. Quietly. Marcus was methodical. He worked fast and without judgment, which I appreciated more than I expected. Within 3 days, he'd found that the discretionary engagement fund Nicole managed had been quietly ballooned from $50,000 a year to over $250,000 without proper board review. She'd shuffled line items between budget cycles, reclassifying luxury spending as program development, alumni outreach, and in one darkly comic case, educational performance wardrobe. She spent $11,000 at Balenciaga, Marcus told me, scanning a spreadsheet. That's a hell of a performance. I wanted to laugh. I didn't. Instead, I stared at the bottom line. Nearly $490,000 in misappropriated funds, once you included auxiliary vendors, questionable contracts, and travel perks. $500,000 that should have gone to scholarships, teacher stipends, textbooks. Gone. And worse, we'd just launched our largest fundraising campaign yet. The foundation's 25th anniversary gala was in 6 weeks, a black tie event poised to raise over $12 million. Nicole was running point. I found her that afternoon in the atrium, surrounded by interns laughing, draped in an ivory blazer that probably cost more than my first car. She was holding court, talking about the DJ, the floral installations, the vibe. The vibe? I said, stepping in. She blinked at me, smile faltering. Oh, Lena. I was just updating the team on the gala run-through. I glanced at the interns. They scattered, all awkward smiles and excuses. Can we talk? I said. She followed me into my office, closing the door behind her with a well-manicured hand. I didn't sit. Neither did she. Your discretionary fund, I said. It's overdrawn by about a year's worth of scholarships. She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, is that what this is? Elena, for God's sake, don't go all headmistress on me. I've been doing the hard work of keeping this place relevant. That takes effort, relationships, access. It takes integrity. Oh, please. She rolled her eyes. This is your problem, Lena. You want everyone to believe you're some kind of saint. But in the real world, you think donors give because of your spreadsheets and pie charts? They give because I make them feel good. I make this place feel aspirational. You think you built this alone? I gave you responsibility, I said quietly. I trusted you. No, she snapped, stepping forward. You gave me crumbs and expected gratitude for it. You needed someone pretty to parade in front of Samantha Page and the Harvard men, but you never respected me. Not really. There it was. Not just theft, resentment, a festering belief that she was owed more than she'd received. I didn't say another word. I just sat down, pulled open my desk drawer, and handed her a single folder. Marcus is preparing a report. There will be a full audit, and you're no longer authorized to spend anything without board oversight. Nicole didn't open the folder. She stared at it like it was a snake. You would burn this down to protect your ego, she whispered. No, I said. I'm protecting what I built, and what you just tried to steal. She stood there for a moment, breathing shallowly. Then she dropped the folder onto the desk and walked out, heels echoing down the hallway. In the following days, she became careful. I knew she was recalibrating, plotting. She didn't challenge my restrictions, didn't fight the audit openly, but she doubled down on charm. She booked private lunches with donors, arranged press spots, told everyone how excited she was for the gala. She was cornered and desperate. One night, I stayed late. The office was dark except for my desk lamp. I was reviewing a grant application when I heard the elevator ding. Nicole, dressed like someone who'd just walked off a yacht. She didn't see me. She went straight into the donor records office. I followed. She was copying files, paper copies of our top-tier donor profiles, contact info, donation history, board affiliations. She was building a list. Are you planning your next act? I asked from the doorway. She jumped, then froze. I don't know what you're talking about, she said calmly. You're siphoning our future. No, she said, her voice suddenly flat. I'm protecting mine. I should have fired her then, marched her out, changed passwords, alerted the board. But I didn't. Not yet. Because she wasn't just stealing from me. She was preparing to exploit the very gala she'd helped design, our biggest night, our most powerful guests, our greatest opportunity to do good. And I wanted everyone to see it. The thing about betrayal is, once it opens the door, the air changes in every room. Even when Nicole wasn't there, I could feel her. In the fingerprints on donor folders she had no reason to touch. in the interns suddenly parroting her marketing language, in the faint scent of rose and smoke she always wore, lingering in my private office when I'd been gone just a little too long. And so, I stopped reacting emotionally. I didn't rage. I didn't plead. I planned. Marcus and I worked like spies. We created a shadow folder in the Foundation's shared drive, innocuously named Archive/Legal Templates. Only we had access. In it, Marcus deposited his findings daily, PDFs, screenshots, flagged transaction logs. Every time Nicole used a Foundation vehicle to drive to her trainer, who lived in a multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills mansion, we logged it. Every time she tagged brand strategy but paid a stylist, we saved it. And then, more disturbing things. A shell company, Mitchell Woods Creative, LLC, registered in Delaware. Active. Hidden in vendor billing under a consulting agreement that had netted her nearly $83,000 in under-the-table payments from us. She was literally invoicing the Foundation under a false name. When I confronted Marcus, my voice low and numb, he just nodded once. She's laundering it. I sat there blinking, not in the narco-thriller sense, but yes. Nicole was creating a paper trail that scrubbed stolen money clean, branding it as earned consulting fees. The level of planning, it was staggering. She's planning an exit, I whispered. Or a takeover, Marcus said grimly. If she gets enough donor loyalty and can discredit you. He didn't have to finish. She was trying to build her own empire. Off my name, off my work, off the foundation that bore my mother's. Grace Mitchell, my mother, taught elementary school for 31 years. She had one pair of pearls, and they were fake. She'd cried when I showed her the first scholarship award in her name, and now her other daughter was strip mining her legacy for handbag money. As the gala approached, the air in the office grew tighter. Nicole had begun treating the planning meetings like auditions. She made every donor meeting a production. Sleek hair, tailored cream suits, expensive heels that announced themselves in every hallway. She flirted, she charmed. She name-dropped Samantha Page like they were sisters. Samantha had become our single largest donor. $2 million annual commitment. Founding sponsor of our new digital learning initiative. She also liked Nicole, or she used to. I knew I couldn't go to Samantha yet. Not without proof and strategy. Nicole was too careful, too cunning, too manipulative. I needed to let her overreach, and she would. Narcissists always do. So I waited. The final clue came from someone unexpected. Sophia, one of our younger interns, came into my office late one afternoon, her face pale. "Miss Mitchell," she said, closing the door behind her. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I overheard Nicole on a call." My stomach tightened. She was on speakerphone. I don't think she knew I was in the copy room. She was talking to someone about offshore transfer limits and bundling gifts from one source. She said something like, "No, we'll do it through the gala. I just need one more signature from the finance chair." I didn't speak. I just nodded slowly. Sophia hesitated. "I'm sorry if I'm overstepping." "No," I said quietly. "You've done the right thing." She left, and I sat very still. Nicole wasn't just embezzling anymore. She was preparing to launder donor money through the gala, probably trying to generate a phantom matching gift where the foundation shows funds we never actually received, but she pulls the donation from a shell company and recycles it to look like double the amount. It was smart, sophisticated, and it was going to collapse in public. I made 3 calls that night. First, to Marcus, who immediately contacted our external auditor and a corporate fraud advisor he knew in D.C. Second, to Harold Jennings, chair of the finance committee, who confirmed he'd been asked, by Nicole to sign a standard Gala transfer form last week that streamlined fund entry. He had been suspicious, thank God. He hadn't signed it. And third, to Samantha Page. I invited her for lunch. Just us. She arrived in a navy silk blouse and oversized sunglasses, carrying a structured cream purse that cost more than most people's rent. "Elena," she said warmly, kissing the air near my cheek, "this better be a good lunch. I've turned down 3 events for this." I ordered us salads. I let her sip half her Chardonnay, and then I told her everything. I didn't show her the spreadsheets, not yet. I painted her a narrative, gently, elegantly, a story of trust and its erosion, of glamour used as camouflage, of donors being manipulated. She listened. She didn't blink. Finally, she leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, "I knew something smelled off." She tried to get me to host a private salon for select patrons next month. She called it an inner circle. That phrase gave me hives. Then she leaned forward. "Do you want my help?" "Yes," I said. "Not just a withdrawal. I want a presence. I want you front row at that gala." She smiled. "Darling, I'll bring a dozen friends." I hadn't slept the night before the gala, not from nerves, from clarity. There's a strange stillness that comes when the decision is made, a kind of internal silence. I knew what I was going to say. I knew how much it would cost me, and I knew what it would save. We hosted the Grace Foundation's 20th anniversary gala at the Templeton Estate. Historic, marbled, and smug. Crystal chandeliers, string quartet, hand-poured candles. The kind of event where people said "legacy" every 5 minutes and barely understood what it meant. I arrived early, in charcoal velvet and pearls. Real ones. My mother's. Marcus walked beside me through the reception hall one last time, checking that everything was in place. Security team briefed, audio-visual systems tested, a flash drive with my full presentation waiting backstage. The final folder, marked Evidence Package, had been sent that morning to our legal counsel and the board's internal ethics officer. It contained 143 flagged transactions totaling $714,829.36, 5 signed falsified documents with Nicole's name, an invoice trail leading to Mitchell Woods Creative LLC, a recorded call, courtesy of Sophia, a financial breakdown of donor money used for personal expenses, including a $47,000 Birkin bag, a $22,300 executive wellness retreat, a $118,000 down payment on a new Porsche Cayenne, and, poetically, a $9,000 private shopping session at Saks labeled as outreach gifts. She stole from children. She stole from teachers. She used the language of giving to fund her lifestyle. But what I hated more than all of it, more than the handbags, more than the lies, was the way she always looked at me. That smug half smile, that "you need me" face. Tonight, I would return that smile. Nicole entered 40 minutes later. On cue. Gowned in crimson, diamonds on her wrist, Thomas trailing behind her with the vaguely dazed look of a man who's just realized his marriage is a brand. She worked the room like it belonged to her. Her laugh rang out like wind chimes in a storm. She kissed Samantha Page's hand and whispered something that made Samantha give a tight, unreadable smile. She had no idea. Not yet. The gala began as they always do. Empty speeches, bloated donor names, video tributes no one watched. I sat through them quietly. I sipped from a single glass of wine. I smiled at people who did not know they were about to witness a fire. When it was finally my turn, the room dimmed and the light shifted. I walked to the podium slowly, letting the silence settle. Nicole was seated to my left, front row, surrounded by friends she called legacy tier donors. She gave me a wink. I did not return it. "Good evening," I said, my voice strong, clear. "And thank you for being here to celebrate 2 decades of work, 2 decades of hope, access, and education for over 9,000 young people across the country." Applause. I let it happen. I let them love me for a moment. And then I took a breath. But tonight isn't only about celebration. It's about truth. The room shifted. Still polite, still composed, but curious. I have spent the last several months reviewing our operations, prompted by routine audit discrepancies. That review revealed significant financial irregularities, the kind that could not be explained away by error or oversight. I heard a gasp. I saw Nicole's smile freeze. "Tonight," I continued, "I want to speak openly to all of you who have entrusted your time, your hearts, and your resources to the Grace Foundation." I paused. And then I clicked the remote. Slide 1. A chart of falsified vendor payments. Slide 2. A wire transfer breakdown with Nicole's name as the authorized signatory. Slide 3. Her LLC. Slide 4. The photo of her at Saks, laughing with bags on her arms, paid for by a grant earmarked for STEM materials. The room began to hum, murmurs, sharp inhales. Nicole rose to her feet. "Elena," she snapped, "what the hell are you doing?" I turned to her. My voice was quiet. "I'm telling the truth." She looked around the room, panicked. "This is slander. You can't. This isn't how we handle things. You don't air family business in public." I met her eyes, and for once, I saw something real. Not confidence, not charm, fear. "This isn't family business, Nicole," I said evenly. "This is fraud, and it stops tonight." Thomas stood now, slowly, dazed. "Nicole, is this real?" he asked, his voice thick. She spun toward him. "Of course not. She's twisting everything. She's jealous. She's always been jealous." "Of what?" I asked. "The shoes? The bills? The lies?" The next slide rolled. A side-by-side of her LLC payments and the invoices she altered. It was irrefutable, cold, clean, ugly. Samantha Page stood without a word and moved to stand beside me at the podium. "She tried to involve me in a private donor scheme," Samantha said, addressing the room. "I declined, but I didn't know she was already doing it." Nicole stared at her, betrayed. And then the room was a storm. Donors murmuring, board members whispering furiously, Marcus quietly exiting to begin the protocol we'd agreed on. Legal action would follow. Our lawyers were waiting. I turned back to the crowd one last time. I founded the Grace Foundation in my mother's name, because she believed in truth, in education, in lifting others. I have failed you in one regard. I trusted someone who did not share those values. I stepped back from the microphone. That failure ends tonight. Nicole didn't cry. That would have required shame. She stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots. Thomas followed, number. And I just stood there, still, whole, free. The next morning, my inbox was a war zone. 4 national outlets had picked up the story before sunrise. Socialite embezzles from education charity. Family betrayal rocks Grace Foundation. Gala of shame. And it was only 7:12 a.m. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from board members, journalists, former grantees, old colleagues from D.C., even my hairdresser. Nicole had gone silent. Her social media vanished overnight. Thomas sent a single message around 3 a.m., asking if we could talk privately. I didn't reply. Instead, I brewed strong black coffee, slipped into my office at the foundation, and started doing the real work. We issued a formal public statement that afternoon. The Grace Foundation confirms that Elena Mitchell, founder and chairwoman, has exposed internal financial misconduct involving a family member previously in a limited administrative role. We are cooperating fully with legal authorities, have initiated a third-party forensic audit, and are committed to complete transparency. Ms. Mitchell continues to lead the foundation with full board support. Clean. Precise. No room for spin. I met with the board that evening. Some of them were furious, not with me, but with the mess. Others were shaken. A few, honestly, impressed. Marcus presented the forensic timeline with a cool detachment that made the facts feel almost surgical. Nicole had stolen just over $740,000 in the span of 27 months. She had masked it with hollow philanthropy, invented program overhead costs, padded media invoices, rebranded fraud as flair. Her charm had been a smokescreen. Mine was now a sword. But the fallout wasn't only procedural, it was deeply personal. Nicole's friends, our old family friends, began reaching out, not to defend her, to defend themselves for ever trusting her. The calls came with a chorus of disclaimers. I had no idea. She fooled everyone. I always thought something seemed off. They wanted absolution. I gave none. My father, who had long favored Nicole, the prettier one, the softer one, left a voicemail that simply said, "You've embarrassed the family." I deleted it without a second thought. A week later, we hosted a donor roundtable, this time in daylight. No champagne, no velvet gowns, just raw truth. I sat across from Samantha Page, who had quickly become one of my fiercest allies. She looked at me after I finished my remarks and said, "You did the hardest thing a woman can do in your position. You told the truth when it would have been easier to keep the peace." I didn't respond immediately. I just exhaled, feeling something settle in me that I hadn't realized was still fighting. I didn't want peace, I said finally. I wanted integrity. Nicole's lawyer reached out by the end of the month. There was no apology, just a careful dance of language, misunderstandings, emotional stress, unfortunate lapses in accounting. They wanted to negotiate quietly, privately. I declined. This wasn't a family spat. This was theft. It was betrayal dressed in silk, and I wouldn't let her walk out of it with a fresh PR team and another red dress. The legal process began in earnest. Charges were filed. I recused myself from decisions where conflict of interest might arise, but stayed in full leadership as founder and figurehead. I rebuilt our donor base almost from scratch, with honesty. We hosted open Q&As. We published every document the law allowed. We held ourselves accountable in real time. And the strange thing? It worked. Trust didn't dissolve. It transformed. People respected us more, not less. Boundaries, once so foreign to me, became sacred. Nicole would never again hold a role in the foundation. I would no longer carry guilt for not saving her, and our last names, though shared, meant nothing. It's been 13 months since the gala. The newspapers stopped calling 6 months ago. The whisper campaigns dried up even sooner. Turns out scandal only has legs when the subject fights dirty. And I never did. Nicole pled guilty to 2 felony counts of embezzlement and received a suspended sentence with 5 years of probation, mandatory restitution, and community service. Some people thought she got off easy. Others thought the shame was punishment enough. Me? I thought about it less and less. She sent me a handwritten letter from her lawyer's office 3 weeks after sentencing. 3 pages of lukewarm regret, studded with lines like, "I never meant to hurt the mission," and "You'll always be my big sister." I read it once. Then I slipped it into a file marked Archive, Closed. The foundation, meanwhile, bloomed. We opened 3 new learning centers last quarter in Baton Rouge, East Cleveland, and Fresno, each with a named endowment from donors who had once nearly walked away. Marcus, now officially our CFO, built a transparency dashboard that updates live on our website. Every grant dollar, every operational expense, public and visible. We even have a scrolling bar that says, "You deserve to know where your generosity goes." Samantha Page joined our advisory board. She visits the offices twice a month, always with a new quote clipped from some obscure 19th century reformer. Her favorite? "Charity is no virtue without the discipline of truth." I have it framed behind my desk now. Personally, life is quieter. No more dinners with people I don't trust. No more appearances for appearances' sake. No more hiding discomfort in the name of family. Thomas and I had lunch once, just the 2 of us. He looked tired but relieved. He said he never really knew what Nicole was doing, not with the charity, not with the credit cards, not with the stories she told over wine. He apologized for not asking sooner. I told him I wasn't angry anymore, but I was finished. With both of them. People ask me now if I miss her, Nicole, miss the childhood memories, miss the laughter we used to share, but I don't, because it was never laughter with me. It was at me. The real question isn't whether I miss Nicole. It's whether I miss who I was when I believed I had a sister. And that answer is even easier. The gala this year was different, intimate, simple. No chandeliers, no couture gowns, just alumni from our programs, current students, teachers, community partners, people who knew what we stood for and knew we had earned it. I gave a short speech. I thanked the board. I thanked the staff. And then, for the first time, I thanked myself for the courage, for the line in the sand, for the refusal to be quiet. Grace isn't about being kind. It's about being clear. And finally, I am both.